From folklore and fairies
to monsters and mysteries, it came from the Maritimes.
We accept him, one of us. Introducing my co-host, Evan.
Who you gonna call? My co-host, Chelsea.
Do-do-do-do-do-do. Hi, everyone. Welcome to It Came From The Maritimes.
Today's topic is the sketching spirit known as the Kentville Phantom Artist. As a warning, there's discussion of suicide and death, including that of a child, in this episode. It was autumn in Kentville when Walter, a traveling art supply salesman, arrived by train. He had just left Halifax, where he had been visiting his sister, and was eager to get back on the road and make more money. Unfortunately, Kentville was very busy at the time, as there were horse races happening. This was a time when Kentville was known as the Devil's Half-Acre, due to the amount of gambling on horse races and subsequent substance abuse. Because of this, Walter was having trouble finding a place to stay for the night. It was getting dark when he finally found an inn where he could stay. It wasn't ideal, but the innkeeper told him that he was letting a friend stay in the attic room for free, and that Walter could stay there for cheap if he didn't mind the company. He eagerly took the deal and went up to the room to settle in. As he arrived, he found a young man, stick-thin and so pale it was as if you could see through him, and he was sketching into a large leather portfolio.
I have to say, for any of my fellow horror movie fans, Evan, I'm assuming you don't know the plot, but this is giving barbarian vibes.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to spoil it, so I won't know more, but if I were to show up in some sort of Airbnb and there was someone already staying there, I'd have the chills.
I actually do know the plot because I said, that ad looks scary, and then I went on Wikipedia and read the plot.
It was very scary. I watched it when I was staying home alone one night when my husband was out of town, and it was like...
I'm going to say this is a lot milder than that.
We'll find out.
Yeah. The man in there looked up and introduced himself as George. Walter looked at the art with interest. Though he sold art supplies, he was not much of an artist himself. George scooted over on the bed and asked Walter if he wanted to join him looking through the portfolio. As Walter flipped through and marveled at the art, George continued to draw on another piece of paper. The art in the portfolio was amazing, showing the Cornwallis River and local sights. After looking through for several hours, he looked over to George's newest piece, a picture of a woman that was so lifelike he would have thought that she could walk off the page. George slid it into the portfolio and said, "It is time for me to go to rest, but feel free to keep any pictures you like. I won't need them anymore." As George proceeded to go to bed, Walter took the picture of the woman and placed it next to his suitcase. But he decided to leave a set of sketching pencils for the young artist, in hopes that he wasn't going to give up his craft. Walter blew out the candle, but the moonlight seemed to shine in the window onto the picture of the young woman, and her eyes seemed to glimmer and shine with life.
Oh my goodness, it's very ominous that George said he didn't need them anymore.
I know, it's quite the tale. So the next day, Walter woke up to find the other bed empty, and all of George's possessions were gone, including the pencils he left. He looked to see that the picture of the woman was still by his bag. There was no way he could have easily left, as there was a deadbolt on the door, as well as a lock on the inside of the window, so he couldn't just get out because he couldn't have locked it on his way out. Walter decided to head downstairs to get some breakfast and, hopefully, some answers. At the bottom of the stairs, the innkeeper addressed him and said that he was sorry he didn't give him a warning, but his friend had actually left, so Walter had the room to himself. He figured that Walter was already asleep, so he didn't want to wake him. Walter responded by asking about George, and the innkeeper furrowed his brow. Walter pulled out the picture of the woman that George had sketched, and the innkeeper looked at it with shock. He said, "Walter, I believe you may have bunked with a ghost."
I actually have goosebumps right now.
He pulled Walter aside and in hushed tones told him about how the attic room was where George had hanged himself several years prior. He didn't warn Walter or any other guests, as he didn't want to ruin the reputation of his inn.
Oh my gosh, well, George was just the sweetest ghost then.
I know, I mean, he was pretty mild compared to a lot of the stories we tell.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
The innkeeper explained that George was a young artist who was the son of a wealthy businessman from New York. He was a carefree man who would canoe up and down the Cornwallis, setting up wherever he saw a good view and painting the landscape. One day, his canoe capsized, and he was pulled ashore by Alice, the woman in the painting. He fell in love with her and considered her a muse of sorts and the love of his life. Unfortunately, she considered him nothing more than a good friend. When he saw her dancing with a military officer at the local dance, George became enraged and confronted Alice. He was thrown out of the dance and returned to the inn. It was Alice who found him hanging in the room the next morning. She was said to have been sitting there quietly when others came in, and she hasn't spoken a word since that day. Walter and the innkeeper decided that they should burn the picture, but found that the picture wouldn't light a flame. In fact, soot and ash wouldn't even mar the paper. So instead, they decided to hang it in the attic room, in hopes that the piece that came to George would someday come to Alice.
Oh my goodness, what a sad but fascinating story. Poor George and Alice.
I know, I mean, George seems like he had maybe an unhealthy obsession with her, but the whole situation's pretty sad.
Oh, it is.
I will say I tried to find details on where this inn was or if it's a building that's still around, but there's no real details, and I guess people wouldn't want to promote that necessarily.
Well, it sounds like Kentville was a bustling metropolis at the time, so there would be a lot of records to sift through.
The Devil's Half-Acre.
My goodness.
Now, when I was going through this, I got interested in a related topic and found that there are a lot of haunted paintings. There was a lot of examples, but there was one that I was more interested in than others, so I'm going to talk about this. And that was the painting Death and the Child by Edvard Munch. So he's probably best known for the Scream painting. Yes, Chelsea and I are both Macaulay Culkin cheeks to her.
Simultaneously, just like, oh.
It shows a distressed child standing in front of a bed which contains her presumably deceased mother.
Oh my goodness.
People claim that the child's eyes follow them and that they can hear rustling of the bed sheets. Some owners of the painting have said that the child will sometimes disappear altogether. This seems relevant because Munch's mother and sister both passed while he was a child, and many think that this is related to the curse.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's a lot of different haunted painting stories, but I thought that was an interesting detail.
That's spooky. I know when I was traveling in Europe quite a few years ago, there was this one castle I went to, and the castle itself was thought to be the inspiration for the castle in Snow White. So I don't remember the name of the castle, but I remember that detail.
Was it Neuschwanstein in Germany?
No, because I think that was the Sleeping Beauty
castle.
Yes. But that was one of the ones I went to. But this was a different one. It was in either Germany or Spain. So
okay.
Take your pick.
Either side of France.
Right. The most significant thing about this was, though, is there was a huge mural painted on the wall of a bunch of different people, some older, some younger, some children. But some of the paintings, like some of the characters in the paintings had black eyes.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about where it is, but I can't. But yeah, so essentially this castle had this huge mural, and here's a picture, Evan.
Oh, wow. Yeah, those are some blacked-out eyes.
So it was super random because some of the people in the painting had blacked-out eyes. Others had regular eyes, but there was no rhyme nor reason. Like, historians had done some research because they were thinking like, oh, is it people who have died who had the blacked-out eyes? But it didn't appear to be the case. So yeah, it was a very creepy painting, but it was very cool to see. But yeah, the idea of haunted paintings is so fascinating.
Jeez, well, that's interesting. All right, so that's the end of our main topic. But since we took a little break for New Year's Day, I have a little quiz for you about New Year's Eve superstitions.
I'm here for it.
I'm going to be honest, I don't think these are the easiest questions. Don't be offended if you don't get them.
Love to hear it.
What do people in Spain do with a suitcase on New Year's Eve?
Fill it with coins.
They actually carry it around empty because it signifies that their new year will be filled with traveling and adventure.
Oh, I'm going to do that this year on New Year's Eve. I love travel and adventure.
Yeah. Why do some European customs say that you should throw your furniture out your window?
Out with the old.
That's literally it. Out with the old and with the new. They think that it helps signify that they're getting rid of all the bad things of the old year and bringing in new things.
I like it.
How many grapes do people in Latin American countries eat for good luck on New Year's Eve?
7.
It's actually 12, one for each month of the year.
Wouldn't that have been cool if it was 7, though?
It would have been. And then, what is the first foot in Hogmanay, which is Scots New Year?
The first foot?
The first foot.
A pig's foot.
No, not quite. It's the first person to set foot across the threshold of a house after midnight. So often, they will visit their neighbors and bring a gift. And that gift is supposed to almost set the tone for the luck they'll get in the new year.
Ooh, Oh, I like it.
And there was a note. I can't find a full explanation of this, but it said that often tall, dark-haired men are preferred to be the first foot. So if anyone needs me to visit in the new year, you call me up.
Evan's going to ensure good luck.
The best explanation I can find is that this custom goes back to around when Vikings were raiding. So the dark hair seems to be a thing of, if there was a blonde hair man there, then it probably meant that Vikings were raiding you.
That's very interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah. But yeah, that was some little superstitions and folklore around the New Year's that I found. I hope you guys found that interesting.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for joining us on this episode of It Came From The Maritimes. I hope that we're starting your new year off right. You can find us on social media on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at It Came From The Maritimes, on X at ICFT Maritimes. And if you have any Atlantic Canada folklore you'd like to see covered in a future episode, or any spooky encounters of your own, please email us at itcamefromthemaritimes@gmail.com. If you enjoy our podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. It helps people find us. We like to end each episode with a folklore tip. It's not necessarily anything serious, just a little bit of fun that we found in our research. Chelsea, would you like to share this?
Absolutely, Evan. Our folklore tip for today's episode is that it's bad luck to look into an empty grave.
Good to know.